Good evening and welcome to Snapshot. Tonight, violent crime continues to plague Melbourne's UnSafe CBD, making a mockery of Victorian Premier Jacinta Allan's repeated statements that the Melbourne CBD is safe.
The CBD of Melbourne is safe. The Victorian community has that protection from Victoria Police. As we saw this morning, Victoria Police moved swiftly, dealt with this situation quickly. Again, I wish to reiterate that the Melbourne CBD is safe. I do understand, though, too, that when incidences do occur, that it would be incredibly distressing.
Stand by the fact that Melbourne CBD is safe?
Well, it should not be repeated, but I will repeat that yes, Melbourne's CBD is safe.
Well, where do we start? Yesterday, armed, masked, far-left, socialist and Antifa thugs threw rocks, glass bottles, rotten fruit and other projectiles at Victoria Police officers who were trying to keep them from attacking attendees at Melbourne's March for Australia against mass immigration. Victoria Police, to protect themselves and disperse these far-left violent extremists, deployed pepper spray, 4 stun grenades, 2 stinger balls, 1 rubber bullet and 50 rounds of pepper balls. At a police media conference later that afternoon, Victoria Police Commander of the Northwest Metro Region, Wayne Cheeseman, said it was the far left who caused all the violence and that March for Australia attendees were peaceful.
This is what was thrown at police today, and I think Melbourne has had a gutful. I look on the social media streaming platforms of some of these issue-motivated groups that are saying police used excessive force. The fact was, these were being thrown at police. Bottles filled with shards of glass were being thrown at the police. Rotten fruit was being thrown at police. Bins were put on fire. Flags were on fire. And I think, really enough's enough. People came to pick a fight with the police. The people that came to pick the fight with police were the issue-motivated groups on the left. I can tell you that the March for Australia group, they were peaceful, they were engaging, they listened to our instructions, they did what they were told, and they protested by example.
2 Victoria Police officers were injured. Victoria Police made 1 arrest on the day, but hearing Wayne Cheeseman there, Victoria Police are going to be hunting for the other masked thugs and hunt them down and charge them. I must say that Wayne Cheeseman, he is a massive improvement on, you might remember, Chief Wiggum, Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelius, who said during COVID that the greatest threat to Victoria was tinfoil hat wearing, batshit crazy conspiracy theorists. Despite Wayne Cheeseman being as clear as day in front of the assembled mainstream media that it was the far left responsible for all the violence on Sunday, they still decided to mislead or outright lie to their viewers that the violence was caused because of the March for Australia. The National Socialist Network did not attend yesterday's March for Australia in any capital city, so there was no Nazi boogeyman for the media to sensationalise on. The organisers of the far-left counter March for Australia claimed that they didn't do nothing and that Victoria Police attacked them unprovoked. Of course, these activists were silent when a freedom protesters were shot with rubber bullets unprovoked during anti-lockdown protests in 2021. Today, Police Association Chief Wayne Gatt rubbished the far left's claim of police brutality.
Organisers of the anti-fascist element of yesterday's protest put out a statement late yesterday saying that police attacked members of their march. What's your response to that interpretation of what happened yesterday?
Nobody believes you. You have no credibility. Maybe turn on the TV and have a look at the pictures. They make your statements out to be quite false, to be quite honest. Look, I think the majority of Victorians see this for what it is. They're sick to the back teeth of this sort of behaviour, this sort of rubbish from these groups. If you're so peaceful, if you're just trying to make your peaceful point, why are you coming with bags of railway ballast? Why are you throwing bottles with glass shards in them? Why are you throwing fruit, eggs, projectiles at the police? Why are you burning things in the streets, rubbish bins, effigies of police? Serious? Do those actions match those words or commitments? It's utter rubbish. And we should start calling this out for what it is, to be quite frank. These people should have no credibility in our society, none whatsoever. And we should all stop, governments included, facilitating their bad behaviour by pandering to them with our language.
But the Premier was silent, as she always is after there is violence in the Melbourne CBD. She only made her first comments today about the violence yesterday at a press conference at the Austin Hospital. So obviously she wanted to talk about health instead of law and order. She only passed comments on the far left violence yesterday when asked by the media. While she did back Victoria Police's actions, she refused to say that the violence came from left-wing protests.
What we saw yesterday was a different pattern of behaviour to those examples. It was a very, very different set of people coming to the city with the view of engaging in violence quite clearly, which is why, as we saw from the police press conference, they came with missiles to hurl at police. Now, those people will be dealt with by the law, and I thank Victoria Police for the work that they are doing. Well, what we saw yesterday is, for some, they are choosing to protest for the sake of protesting, and whilst that very important tenet of our democratic society is the right to protest, what comes with that is an obligation to do so safely. And what was clear yesterday was, for some, a small number, they chose to come and bring violence to the streets. And I want to thank Victoria Police for the way they kept the community safe and dealt swiftly with this group of protesters who were choosing to use violence. And it was unacceptable what we saw that was perpetrated on the men and women of Victoria Police, who were there to keep the community safe.
Of course, Jacinta Allan doesn't want to alienate her voters. Liberal opposition leader Brad Batten, after calling March for Australia attendees racist after the August 31 rally, finally called out the far left thuggery.
Every morning we wake up, there's another machete attack happening here across the state. For over 100 weeks, we've seen protests in Melbourne where effectively the left-wing, extreme left-wing protesters have continued to take over the city and impacted businesses. We're seeing crime in shops, we're seeing cars being stolen, and we're seeing people being stabbed in the streets in Melbourne, including innocent victims. When is enough enough? We have seen protests from the far left come into Melbourne and effectively take over our streets. Victoria Police deserve the respect that when they're out there to protect the community, that they will be protected. And what we saw on the weekend with these extreme left-wing protesters who have decided to throw rocks at Victoria Police is nothing short of a disgrace. We deserve to make sure Victoria and our Melbourne CBD is safe. It is time to fix this problem. We can't continue to have a Premier who puts her head in the sand every time asked about safety on the community, safety on the streets here in our city. Victorians deserve more. Victorian businesses deserve more, and Victoria Police deserve more.
Last Tuesday, 48-year-old Simon Davis allegedly carjacked 2 vehicles with a fake gun, beginning his rampage with his first carjacking in Hoppers Crossing in Melbourne's west before carjacking another car in North Melbourne. He was eventually arrested in a CBD hotel by tactical police. He was already on bail for stealing a car and threatening to kill hospital staff just 2 days earlier.
Simon Michael Davies, the man police say unleashed horror across Melbourne with what has now been revealed as a fake gun. Tonight, there's new insight into the moments leading up to the rampage while he was on bail. The 48-year-old and his wife pulled into a Tarneet service station. Davies appears calm just before 8 yesterday morning, but within minutes, he is banging on the front door before he walks back to a Bowser, screaming at a motorist. He tries to fill a jerrycan after his vehicle ran out of petrol, but it's not working and the mayhem began. After one failed carjacking attempt...
Keys! Please, God, I love you. God bless.
The accused speeds off in another vehicle before a second alleged carjacking in North Melbourne.
Oh my God. What did we just see?
Those witnesses and alleged victims didn't know the gun was fake. Neither did these city workers running for their lives. Eventually, Davies was arrested in a hotel.
Mr. Davies' lawyers argued he should be granted bail because he was a vulnerable person due to his ill health. During the magistrate's court's proceeding, Davies interjected, telling the court that he had suffered a hard upbringing. I'm a very kind and compassionate and religious man. I would never in my lifetime harm any woman or child under any circumstances, and then started sobbing, though the magistrate denied him bail. Then we had sushi chef Wen Li, aged 36, who migrated from Taiwan 7 years ago, who was allegedly stabbed on her way to work at 7:40 a.m. by Lauren Darrell. Wen Lei suffered a punctured lung and spent 3 days in hospital. She is now too scared to leave her apartment. Darrell was on bail, living in a nearby homeless shelter called Make Room, funded by the Allan government and the City of Melbourne. Now, this actually occurred back on October 2nd, but wasn't reported by Victoria Police or a statement issued by the Mayor, Nicholas Rees, until the CCTV footage was broadcast 2 weeks later on October 16.
Sudden and shocking, the random city stabbing has stunned Melbourne and left our Premier dodging questions.
Is Melbourne CBD safe?
So this was a brazen, shocking act.
36-year-old Wan Lei stabbed in the chest as she walked to work on Little Bourke Street. Her attacker sprinted down Swanston Street, her blade still out. Police have charged 32-year-old Lauren Darrell, who was on bail at the time, for theft.
1, 2, 3, 4. Ding and ding and ding and ding and ding and ding and ding.
The unprovoked attack has reignited fury about bail laws and spiralling crime. Lauren Darrell was arrested just 90 minutes after the attack and remains in custody, but she plans to challenge that in a hearing at the Melbourne Magistrates Court next Tuesday, when she plans to apply for bail.
No one who commits such a brazen, violent act on our streets should be on our streets.
We are a very safe city, but we have seen a rise in crime, and it's important and incumbent on all levels of government to step up and do more.
if she's granted bail tomorrow, that would be obscene. The ghoulish response online from violent crime downplayers, as I call them, to the arrest of both Simon Davies and Lauren Durrell is to claim that because they are white, it proves that immigrant crime is overblown. How does that comfort the victims? How does that make violent crime less of a crisis in Melbourne? These two terrifying incidents demonstrate another government failing of deinstitutionalising of the dangerously mentally ill and having this care in the community model. Both alleged offenders were already out on bail despite they had demonstrated mental illnesses. There's a similarity in the stabbing of Wan Lei and the stabbing death of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska on a train in North Carolina by black felon DeCarlos Brown that I covered in a previous snapshot. Both were immigrants who thought that they were coming to a safe country, but were stabbed by people who shouldn't have been out on the streets. And the horror of what happened to them didn't go into the public domain until the CCTV footage was published online, though thankfully Wan Lei has survived, but she's still very traumatized.
Organisers of the anti-fascist element of yesterday's protest.
Then there is the continuing youth gang machete fights, despite the Premier's machete bins. There was a machete fight at Broadmeadows Central on October 10. The youths fled via car before police arrived. Last Wednesday, there was a machete fight on the roof of Fountain Gate Shopping Centre in Narre Warren in Melbourne's southeast. No one has made a complaint, according to Victoria Police. Then yesterday at St Kilda's iconic Luna Park, 2 teenagers were slashed by a car full of youths carrying machetes who sped off after crashing into another car. Kiwi Mike Bush might now be wondering what he signed up for as Victoria's Police Commissioner. But unlike his predecessor, Shane Patton, he is prepared to contradict the Premier. Last Monday, he announced a Victoria Police restructure in response to what he called the state's major crime problem and the lack of trust and confidence in police to tackle it. Victoria's crime statistic agency data revealed that there was an increase of 86,587 criminal offences recorded in the previous 12 months to June, 638,640 in total, an increase of 15.7%, or adjusted for population, that's a 13.8% annual increase. He told the media when he was announcing this restructure that the police needed a reset to reorganise themselves. He said, "We don't have enough police on the front line to prevent and respond to calls for service because the way we've organised ourselves has kept a lot of them either in the back room or at the back of the station completing jobs that somebody else should do on their behalf." So the restructure aims to cut back on centralised commands on departments, reduce administrative burdens on frontline officers, as well as cutting the number of deputy commissioners from 6 to 4, with one dedicated specifically to crime prevention, though Mike Bush has spent $100 million of Victorian taxpayers' monies so far in the failed manhunt for sovereign citizen Desi Freeman after he allegedly shot dead 2 police officers who had come to his Porpunka home in the Victorian High Country to serve him with a warrant for historical child sex assault claims on August 26. Of course, Victoria Police can only do so much. They can arrest and charge these offenders, but we see magistrates and judges grant bail all too frequently. Jacinta Allan's tough new bail laws, which removed remand as a last resort, did not cover youth offenders. On Saturday, outside Jacinta Allan's Bendigo East electorate office, a group calling themselves the New Radicals dropped off a shit Premier disposal bin, mocking her machete amnesty bins. But despite more violent crime and lawlessness piling up in Victoria, Jacinta Allan's Labor government is on track for re-election in November 2026, when the next state election is due, according to the latest Resolve and Redbridge polls. The main threat to Jacinta Allan's premiership is more likely to be her deputy, Ben Carroll, who went off message with reporters on Saturday, who said, "From the CBD to Cobblebank, we must end this lawlessness, beginning with culture and a zero tolerance approach. Nothing that is bad behaviour affecting the peace of mind of law-abiding citizens should be tolerated, and kids who commit violent crime should face time." I'm Tim Wilms, and that's Snapshot. To my fellow Victorians, please stay safe and alert. Good night.